The morning alarm echoed through the metal halls of Station Kepler like a dying animal. Park Min-ho rolled out of his narrow bunk and rubbed his eyes. 6 months at the Galactic Defense Academy, and he still hated that sound. "It's another beautiful day in paradise," he said to the empty room. His roommate had transferred out 3 weeks ago. Something about humans being too unpredictable to live with. Min-ho did not mind the space. He pulled on his gray training uniform and checked the schedule on his wall display. Combat simulation at 0800 hours. His stomach dropped a little. Combat days were always the worst. The corridor outside his room buzzed with activity. Cadets from 12 different species hurried toward the mess hall. Min-ho walked past a group of Centauri cadets, their blue skin gleaming under the artificial lights. They ignored him completely. Most aliens did. The mess hall was a massive space filled with tables designed for different body types. Min-ho grabbed a protein pack and looked around for Lee Sura. He found her sitting alone at one of the human-sized tables near the back wall. "Morning," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Sura looked up from her breakfast. Her dark eyes were tired, but alert, ready for another fun day of getting beaten up by our alien friends. "Always," Min-ho said, with a grin. "Think they'll go easy on us today?" Sura snorted. "When have they ever gone easy on us?" "That's true, eh?" In the 6 months since humans had been accepted into the academy, Min-ho and Sura had faced nothing but hostility. The other species saw humans as weak, too small, too fragile, too emotional. They wondered why the Galactic Council had even bothered to invite Earth to join. "At least we have each other," Min-ho said. Sura smiled for the first time that morning. Yeah, the terrible twosome. They finished eating in comfortable silence. Round them, the mess hall filled with the sounds of different languages and the scraping of chairs on metal floors. A group of Rex warriors at a nearby table were talking loudly about the upcoming simulation. Their deep voices carried easily across the room. "I heard we get to use live rounds today," one of them said. His name was Thokumar, and he was the biggest Rex in their year. His natural armor plating was dark green and covered in scars from past battles. "About time," another Rex replied. "I am tired of playing with toy weapons." Min-ho and Sura exchanged glances. Live rounds meant real danger. The academy used them sometimes for advanced training, but usually only with senior cadets. "Guess we better be extra careful today," Sura said quietly. They made their way to the combat simulation deck. The room was huge, with adjustable gravity fields and movable walls that could create any battlefield the instructors wanted. Today, it was set up like an asteroid field with floating rocks and metal platforms. Instructor Kavath stood at the control station. He was a Centauri with decades of military experience. His voice boomed across the deck as cadets filed in. "Today, you will face real combat conditions," he announced. "Live ammunition, zero gravity, limited oxygen. Work in teams of 2. Survive for 30 minutes. Min-ho felt his heart rate increase. Live ammunition meant people could die. The Academy's medical technology was advanced, but it had limits. "Teams will be assigned randomly," Kavath continued. He began reading names from his display. Min-ho held his breath, hoping he would be paired with Sura. They had trained together for months and knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. Park Min-ho and Lee Sura, Team 7. Leaf flooded through. At least they would face this together. Volkmar and Grixtel, Team 3. The 2 Rex warriors grinned at each other. Their teeth were sharp and yellow. Min-ho had seen them in action before. They were brutal but effective. The teams were given 15 minutes to prepare. Min-ho and Sura checked their equipment carefully. Standard pulse rifles, emergency oxygen, magnetic boots for moving between platforms. Everything looked normal. "Something feels wrong about this," Sura said as she adjusted her weapon settings. "Everything feels wrong here," Min-ho replied. We are humans in a galaxy that does not want us. No, I mean really wrong. Look at how the wrecks are acting. Minho glanced across the preparation area. Stokomar and his partner were whispering together and looking in their direction. When they noticed him watching, they turned away quickly. It's probably just planning how to show off, Minho said. But he felt uneasy too. The simulation began with a loud buzzer. Gravity shut off instantly, and Minho felt his stomach lurch as he began to float. He activated his magnetic boots and stepped onto the nearest platform. The asteroid field around them was dark, except for emergency lighting on each platform. Somewhere in this maze, enemy targets would appear. Its goal was simple: survive and eliminate as many targets as possible. Minho and Sura moved carefully from platform to platform. Their magnetic boots made soft clicking sounds on the metal surfaces. They had practiced this kind of movement hundreds of times, but never with live ammunition. Contact, Sura whispered into her comm. She pointed to a platform 50 meters away, where a mechanical target had just appeared. They moved into position and took aim. Minho fired first, his pulse rifle sending a bright blue bolt across the space. The target exploded in a shower of sparks. Sigh, Sura said. They continued, moving through the field. More targets appeared, and they worked together to eliminate them. Their teamwork was smooth and efficient. For a few minutes, Minho almost forgot about his uneasiness. Then he heard heavy footsteps on the platform behind him. Well, came Thokmar's deep voice. Look what we found. Minho and Sura turned around slowly. The two Rex warriors stood at the edge of their platform, pulse rifles in their hands. But something was wrong. The weapons were pointed at them, not at any targets. Training accidents happen all the time, Thokmar said with a cold smile, especially two weak species who should not be here. Sora's hand moved toward her weapon, but Grixtel raised his rifle higher. I would not do that, he growled. Minho felt ice in his veins. This was not part of the simulation. This was real. The instructors will see, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Thokmar laughed. Instructors see equipment malfunction. Humans get hurt. Very sad. Very unfortunate. The Rex warrior's finger moved to his trigger. In that moment, Minho understood that he was about to die. Not in glorious battle, not defending his world, but murdered by a bully who thought humans did not belong in space. He looked at Sura and saw the same understanding in her eyes. But he also saw something else, something cold and calculating that he had never seen before. The pulse rifle fired with a bright flash. Minho felt the burning impact in his chest and fell backward into the darkness between platforms. His last thought was wondering if Sura would survive. He did not see the change that came over her face as his body drifted away into the black. Sura watched Minho's body drift into the darkness between the platforms. Time seemed to stop. The bright flash of the pulse rifle still burned in her eyes. The smell of burned metal and ozone filled the air. Silence. Then the alarms started screaming. Red. Emergency lights bathed the simulation chamber in blood-colored shadows. Instructor Kavas' voice boomed over the communication system. All cadets stop movement immediately. Medical emergency in progress. Repeat. All cadets freeze in position. Sphera did not move. She stood perfectly still on the metal platform, watching the spot where Minho had disappeared. Her pulse rifle hung loose in her hands. Her breathing was slow and steady. Thokmar and Grixtel were already moving away from the scene. They activated their magnetic boots and walked quickly toward the nearest exit platform. Their faces showed no emotion, no guilt, no fear, nothing. Unfortunate accident, Thokmar said loudly enough for the instructors to hear. Human cadet fell into dark zone. We tried to help, but too late. Grixtel nodded. Yes, very tragic. Equipment malfunction maybe. The gravity field reactivated suddenly. Sora felt her feet touch the platform firmly around the chamber. Other cadets began moving toward the exits. Okay, the simulation was over. Emergency medical drones flew into the dark spaces between platforms. Their bright searchlights cut through the shadows like knives. It took them 4 minutes to find Minho's body. Sora heard the medical team leaders report over the emergency channel. Human cadet located. Multiple pulse rifle wounds to chest and abdomen. No life signs detected. Victim appears to have been dead for several minutes. Dead, the word echoed in Sora's mind like a bell ringing in an empty room. Minho was dead, her partner. Her only friend in this place filled with aliens who hated them. Instructor Kavith appeared on her platform using a personal gravity lift. His blue Centauri face was concerned, but not surprised. Death happened at the academy. It was part of military training. Cadet Lee, he said formally, please report what you observed during the incident. Sora looked at him with empty eyes. Equipment malfunction, she said in a flat voice, as the Vrex cadets reported. Kavath studied her face carefully. You saw nothing unusual. Nothing. Vrex cadets attempted to assist. Yes, it was all lies. Every word, but Sora's voice never changed. Her expression remained blank. Inside her mind, something was breaking apart, like ice cracking on a frozen lake. Very well, Kavath said. Report to the medical bay for trauma evaluation. Standard procedure after witnessing a training death. Sora nodded and followed him to the exit. As they walked, she passed Thokmar and Grixtol. The Vrex warriors were talking to another instructor, explaining the tragic accident. Their story was simple and believable. Human cadet made mistake, fell into dangerous area. They tried to help, but were too far away. Very sad. These things happen in combat training. Thokmar's eyes met Sora's for a moment. He smiled slightly. A cold, satisfied smile that said he had won. The weak human was dead, and there would be no consequences. Sora looked away and kept walking. The medical bay was bright white and sterile. Dr. Helix was a Corvin with 6 arms and skin like gray rubber. She had treated hundreds of training injuries over the years. Human psychology was still new to her, but she tried to be thorough. Please sit, she said, gesturing to an examination table with 2 of her arms while making notes with the other 4. Sora sat down and stared at the white wall. I must ask you standard questions about the traumatic event you witnessed, Dr. Helix said. Do you feel responsible for your partner's death? No. Do you feel angry at the Vrex cadets who were present? No. Do you feel confused or disoriented? No. Dr. Helix made more notes. Your emotional responses are very controlled. This is normal for some humans during shock. I will prescribe mild sedatives to help you process the trauma. She handed Sora a small bottle of pills. Take one every 8 hours. Return in 3 days for follow-up evaluation. Sora pocketed the pills without looking at them. She would not be taking any sedatives. She needed her mind clear for what was coming. Am I dismissed? She asked. Yes. And Cadet Lee, I am sorry for your loss. Minho was a promising student. Sora nodded and left the medical bay. In the corridor outside, she could hear other cadets talking about the accident. The news was spreading quickly through the academy. Did you hear about the human training accident? Very messy. I heard the Vrex tried to save him. Humans are too fragile for real military training. Maybe Earth should reconsider joining the Galactic Defense Force. Sora walked past them all without reacting. Her face remained calm and expressionless, but inside her mind, the ice was still cracking. She made her way to the memorial wall in the main corridor. Every cadet who died during training had their name added to the metal plaque. In a few days, Minho's name would be there too. One more casualty of military education. Sura stood in front of the wall for a long time. Other cadets walked past her, going about their daily routines. Life at the academy continued as if nothing had happened, but something had happened. Something that would change everything. Sura remembered her childhood on Earth, the stories her grandmother told about old Korea, about honor and revenge, about what happened to people who hurt your family. She remembered the training she had received before coming to the academy, training that was not listed in her official file, skills that her instructors here knew nothing about. Most importantly, she remembered watching Thokmar switch ammunition packs before the simulation began. She had seen him load live rounds while Grixtel blocked the view from the cameras. It was not an accident. It was murder, and murderers had to pay. Sura touched the memorial wall gently, as if Minho's name was already carved there. Then she turned and walked away. Her footsteps echoed in the empty corridor like a countdown timer. She had work to do. In her quarters that night, Sura sat on her narrow bunk and stared at the wall. Her roommate was asleep in the next bed, snoring softly. The academy was quiet, except for the hum of life. Support systems. Sura opened her personal storage locker and pulled out a small metal case hidden behind her spare uniforms. Tia. Inside the case were items that were not supposed to exist at the academy. Tools and weapons from Earth that had somehow passed through security screening. She assembled the pieces carefully in the dark. Her hands moved with practiced precision. This was not the first time she had prepared for war. Tomorrow, the instructors would hold an inquiry into Minho's death. They would ask questions and file reports. The Vrex cadets would repeat their story about equipment malfunctions and failed rescue attempts. It would all be very official and proper. But tonight, Sura would begin hunting. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed a human's family. 3 days after Minho's death, the academy held its official inquiry. Sura sat in the sterile white hearing room and answered questions in a flat, emotionless voice. Yes, she had witnessed the accident. No, she had not seen anything suspicious. Yes, the Vrex cadets had tried to help. The inquiry board consisted of 3 senior officers from different species. They asked the same questions over and over in different ways. Sura gave the same answers each time. "Thank you for your cooperation, Cadet Lee," said Admiral Korvash, a gray-skinned Deltan who led the board. "This has been a tragic loss for the Academy. We will be implementing new safety protocols to prevent similar accidents." Sura nodded politely. "Will there be any disciplinary action against the Vrex cadets?" "No evidence suggests any wrongdoing," Admiral Korvash replied. "Equipment malfunction is unfortunately common in advanced training scenarios." "I understand," Sura said, but she did not understand. She understood perfectly. The academy was going to do nothing. Minho was dead, and his killers would face no consequences. They would graduate and become officers in the Galactic Defense Force. They would probably kill more humans along the way, unless someone stopped them. After the inquiry, Sura walked through the academy corridors like a ghost. Other cadets avoided. Her death made people uncomfortable, especially when it involved the weak human species. It's better to stay away and pretend nothing had happened. That evening, Swara attended the memorial service for Minho. His name was officially added to the wall of honor. A Zenthari chaplain said words about sacrifice and duty. Minho's body would be sent back to Earth in a sealed container. Thokmar and Grixtel attended the service. They stood in the back with other Vrex cadets, their faces appropriately solemn. When people looked at them, they shook their heads sadly. Such a terrible accident. If only they could have reached him sooner. Sura watched them from across the room. She memorized every detail of their faces. The scars on Thokmar's armor plating. The way Grixtel's left eye twitched when he lied, the sound of their breathing, the pattern of their footsteps. She was learning to hunt. After the service, most cadets returned to their quarters or went to the recreation areas. The academy's daily routine continued unchanged. Classes, training, meals, sleep. Life went on as if Minho had never existed. But Sura did not return to her quarters. Instead, she made her way to the maintenance levels of the station. These areas were rarely patrolled and contained the machinery that kept Station Kepler running. More importantly, they had access to the Academy's computer systems. Sura had discovered these passages during her first week at the Academy. Most cadets never bothered to explore beyond their assigned areas. But Sura was not most cadets. She had been trained to learn every detail of any place she might need to fight. The maintenance tunnels were dark and filled with the hum of electrical systems. Sura moved through them without using a light. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, and her feet found their way silently across the metal grating. She reached a computer's access terminal hidden behind a power distribution panel. This was not supposed to be here. Someone had installed it illegally years ago, probably to steal information or sabotage systems. Sura had found it by accident and never reported it. Tonight, Ski was grateful for that accident. She connected her personal datapad to the terminal and began searching the Academy's files, student records, class schedules, security protocols, dormitory assignments. Everything she needed to plan her next moves. Thokmar and Grixtel shared quarters in the Vrex warrior dormitory. They had 3 other roommates, all from the same clan on their homeworld. The dormitory was in Section C, Level 7. Security was light, because Vrex warriors were considered trustworthy. That was about to change. Sura studied the dormitory layout on her datapad. She memorized guard patrol routes, camera positions, and emergency exits. She noted which times the corridors would be empty and which periods offered the best opportunities for movement. The Vrex dormitory was designed like a fortress. Thick walls, limited entrances, and clear sightlines in all directions. The Vrex liked to feel secure in their living spaces. They wanted to be able to see threats coming from far away, but they had never faced a threat like Sura. She spent 2 hours studying the files and planning her approach. Then she deleted all traces of her presence from the computer system and made her way back through the maintenance tunnels. Over the next 3 days, Sura watched the Vrex cadets carefully. She learned their routines and habits. Stokomar always ate breakfast at 0630 hours. Grixtel preferred to exercise alone in the early morning. They attended classes together and spent their free time with other Vrex warriors. Most importantly, she discovered that they bragged about killing Minho. She overheard them talking in the mess hall, speaking in their native language. They thought no humans could understand Vrex's speech. They were wrong. Sura had learned many languages during her training on Earth. The human died so easily, Thokmar said with satisfaction. 1 shot and he was finished. Did you see the look on his face? Grixtel laughed. He actually thought we would get in trouble. Humans are too stupid to survive in space, another Vrex added. Earth should never have been invited to join. Maybe we should kill the female too, Thokmar suggested. Make it look like suicide. Grief over losing her partner. They all laughed at this idea. The sound made Sura's blood turn cold with rage, but she did not react. She sat at her table, eating her breakfast as if she had heard nothing. Her face remained calm and expressionless. Inside her mind, she added their words to the list of crimes that would be answered. On the 4th night after the inquiry, Sura made her final preparations. She assembled her weapons and checked her equipment one last time. Everything was ready. The Vrex dormitory would be quiet at this hour. Most of the warrior cadets would be asleep, tired from a day of combat training. The guards would be bored and inattentive. Security cameras could be avoided. You knew the right paths. Sora knew all the right paths. She dressed in black clothing and applied dark paint to her face and hands. The items from her hidden case were strapped to her body in places where they would not interfere with movement. She moved through the academy corridors like a shadow, avoiding all the areas where she might be seen. The maintenance tunnels brought her close to the Vrex dormitory without crossing any major checkpoints. From there, she could reach the warrior quarters through a series of service passages that most people did not know existed. Sora paused at the last checkpoint before entering enemy territory. Beyond this point, there would be no turning back. Once she began, she would have to finish everything tonight. She thought about Minho one last time, her friend who had never hurt anyone, who had dreamed of serving in the Galactic Defense Force and protecting innocent people who had been murdered by bullies who thought humans were too weak to matter. Tonight, those bullies would learn how wrong they were. Sora checked her weapons one final time and stepped into the darkness. The hunt was about to begin. Sora moved through the service tunnels like death itself. Her feet made no sound on the metal grating. Her breathing was controlled and silent. Every movement was precise and calculated. The Vrex dormitory section was ahead. She could hear voices coming from the common area where the warrior cadets gathered after evening training. They were celebrating something, probably another successful day of bullying weaker species. Sora reached the ventilation grate that looked down into their quarters. 5 Vrex warriors sat around a low table, sharing fermented drinks and talking loudly. Stockmar was in the center, telling a story that made the others laugh. So the human cadet falls into space, he was saying, and his little girlfriend just stands there watching. No tears, no screaming. Humans have no emotions at all. Maybe she was happy to see him die, Grixtel suggested. One less weak human to embarrass their species. More laughter filled the room. They passed around a bottle of something that smelled like rotting meat. Vrex battle drink was famous for being stronger than most species could handle. Perfect. Drunk. Enemies made easier targets. Sora waited and watched. She counted weapons, noted positions, and planned her approach. The room had 2 entrances. One led to the main corridor. The other connected to a storage area that accessed the service tunnels. She would enter through the storage room, fast and silent. Take out the closest target first. Ken work her way through the group before they could react. The Vrex continued drinking and bragging. They talked about other humans they wanted to kill. They discussed ways to make it look like accidents. Ate laughed about how stupid the academy instructors were for believing their lies. I say we kill the female next week, Folkmar said. During the weapon training exercise. Oops, another equipment malfunction. Yes, Grixtel agreed. Then Earth will finally understand that humans do not belong in space. Sora's hands tightened on her weapons. Enough watching. It's time to act. She moved through the final section of tunnel and reached the storage room access. The lock was electronic, but Sora had tools for that. 30 seconds later, she was inside. The storage room was filled with spare uniforms and cleaning supplies. It connected directly to the Vrex common area through a door that was supposed to be locked. But Vrex warriors never worried about security in their own dormitory. Another mistake they would not live to repeat. Sora checked her equipment one last time. 2 curved blades strapped to her arms, a small projectile weapon, several items that would look like accidents if anyone found them. Later, everything was ready. She opened the door and stepped into the room. The first Vrex died before he saw her coming. Sora's blade found the gap between his armor plates at the base of his neck. He made a small choking sound and fell forward onto the table. The others turned toward the sound. They were drunk and slow to react. In the few seconds it took them to understand what was happening, Sora was already moving. The second Vrex tried to stand and reach for his weapon. Sura's blade opened his throat before his feet left the floor. Dark blood sprayed across the wall. Behind him. What is happening? Thokmar roared. He was the biggest and strongest, but also the drunkest. He stumbled as he tried to grab Sura. She moved like water around his clumsy attack. Her blade sliced through the tendons in his legs. He crashed to the floor with a sound like falling rocks. Grixtel and the 5th Rex finally understood that they were under attack. Tay grabbed weapons from the wall rack and turned to face her. But Sura was no longer where they expected her to be. She had learned to fight in places where being small was an advantage, where speed mattered more than strength, where killing quickly was the only way to survive. The Rex had learned to fight in straight battles between armies. They expected their enemies to face them directly. They had never fought someone who moved like a shadow and struck like lightning. Grixtel fired his pulse rifle at the spot where Sura had been standing. The energy bolt burned a hole in the wall, but Sura was already behind him, her blade sliding between his ribs and into his heart. The last Rex warrior backed against the wall. His eyes were wide with terror. This was not supposed to happen. Rex warriors were the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not die at the hands of weak humans. Please, he said in broken standard language. I did not kill your friend. That was Thokmar and Grixtel. Sura looked at him without emotion. But you laughed, she said quietly. You all laughed. Her blade moved faster than his eyes could follow. He fell beside his dead companions. Kokomar was still alive, bleeding on the floor where his legs had been cut. He looked up at Sura with hatred and pain. You cannot do this, he gasped. The Academy will hunt you down. The Galactic Council will execute you. Sura knelt beside him. Her blade was wet with alien blood. Her face was calm and expressionless. Maybe, she said, but you'll not be alive to see it. Wait, Thokmar said desperately. I can make deal. Tell them it was accident. Equipment malfunction, like your friend. My friend, Sura repeated slowly. You remember him now? As she showed Thokmar the blade, it gleamed in the room's artificial light. His name was Park Min-ho, she said. Wanted to protect innocent people. You killed him because you thought humans were weak. Thokmar tried to crawl away from her. His injured legs would not support his weight. He left a trail of dark blood on the floor. Please, he begged. I am sorry. It was a mistake. Yes, Sura agreed. It was a mistake. Your mistake. She grabbed Thokmar's head and twisted sharply. The sound of breaking bone filled the room. Then silence. Sura stood up and looked around at what she had done. 5 Rex warriors lay dead in pools of their own blood. The room smelled of death and fear. She had expected to feel satisfaction, or relief, or something that would tell her that justice had been served. Instead, she felt nothing at all. The killing had been necessary. These creatures had murdered her friend and planned to murder her. They had laughed about it. They had celebrated it. Now they were dead, and the galaxy. It was a slightly better place. Sura cleaned her blades and put them away. She looked around the room one more time, making sure she had left no evidence that could identify her. Then she walked to where Thokmar's body lay and drew her blade again. There was one more thing she needed to do, something that would send a message to every alien in the Academy who thought humans were weak. She worked quickly and efficiently. When she was finished, she wrapped her prize in a piece of cloth and tucked it under her arm. 23 seconds had passed since she entered the room. Time to leave. Sura walked back through the storage room and into the service tunnels. Behind her, Vrex dormitory was silent, except for the dripping of blood on metal floors. She made her way through the Academy corridors toward the central assembly hall. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hallways like a drumbeat. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you killed a human's family, and they were going to learn it tonight. Sura walked through the academy corridors with steady steps. The bundle under her arm was small and wrapped in dark cloth. Was anyone watching? She looked like a cadet carrying laundry or personal items back to her quarters. No one was watching. The academy ran on strict schedules. At this hour, most cadets were either sleeping or studying in their rooms. The corridors were empty except for the occasional patrol guard, who nodded politely as she passed. If they only knew what she carried. Sura made her way toward the central assembly hall. The large room was used for important meetings and official ceremonies. Tonight, it was hosting an emergency session of the academy leadership. She had learned about the meeting from the computer files she accessed earlier. The academy commanders were discussing new safety protocols after Minho's death. They wanted to prevent future training accidents. How thoughtful of them. Sura reached the assembly hall and paused outside the main entrance. Through the doors, she could hear voices speaking in different alien languages, the sounds of diplomacy and bureaucracy, the noise that powerful people made when they wanted to appear concerned about problems they had no intention of solving. She checked her appearance. In the polished metal of the doorframe, her black clothing was clean. The alien blood had been washed from her face and hands. She looked like any other academy cadet, except for her eyes. Her eyes had changed during the past hour. They held something cold and final that had not been there before. Something that would never completely go away. Sura took a deep breath and opened the doors. The assembly hall was a large circular room with seats arranged in tiers around a central speaking area. Tonight, it was filled with the Academy's senior staff and visiting officials from the Galactic Council. Admiral Corvash stood at the central podium, addressing the assembled leaders. His gray Deltan skin looked pale under the bright lights. The death of Cadet Park Minho has raised serious questions about our training procedures, he was saying. We must ensure that such tragic accidents do not happen again. Instructor Kavath sat in the front row, nodding along with the Admiral's words. Perhaps we should limit live ammunition exercises to senior cadets only, he suggested. An excellent proposal, agreed Counselor Vexstar, a Zenthari representative from the Galactic Council. Young cadets lacked the experience to handle such dangerous equipment safely. They were all very concerned, very thoughtful, very determined to solve the problem of humans dying during training. None of them had bothered to investigate whether Minho's death was actually an accident. Sura walked down the center aisle toward the speaking platform. Her footsteps echoed in the large room. Conversations began to stop as alien eyes turned to watch her approach. She looked small and insignificant compared to the powerful beings around her. Just another human cadet who did not really belong in their galaxy-spanning civilization. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Corvash noticed her first. Cadet Lee, he said, with surprise. This is a closed session. You should not be here, Sura continued, walking until she reached the central platform. Then she stopped and looked around the room. Dozens of alien faces stared back at her. Sidari, Deltans, Corvins, and others. The leaders of galactic civilization. I have something to report, she said in a clear, calm voice. This is not the proper procedure, Admiral Corvash said sternly. If you have concerns about the training incident, you may file a formal complaint through appropriate channels. The training incident, Sura repeated slowly. Is that what you are calling murder now? A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. Several alien languages mixed together in a confused babble of voices. Cadet Lee, Admiral Corvash said more firmly, you are clearly suffering from trauma related to your partner's death. Please report to the medical bay for psychological evaluation. I am not suffering from trauma, Sura said. I am suffering from the knowledge that my friend was murdered and his killers are being protected by this academy. The murmurs grew louder. Instructor Kavath stood up from his seat. These are serious accusations, he said. Do you have evidence to support such claims? Sura reached under her arm and pulled out the dark cloth bundle. She unwrapped it slowly, revealing what lay inside. Thugmar's severed head stared out at the assembly with dead eyes. Dark blood still dripped from the ragged neck, where Sra's blade had cut through bone and flesh. The room erupted in chaos. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in panic and outrage. Some reached for weapons that were not there. Others tried to run toward the exits. Security alarms began wailing throughout the academy. Sura stood calmly in the center of the storm, holding the head of the Vrex warrior who had killed her friend. Cadet Park Minho was murdered, she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Thokmar and Grixtel loaded live ammunition and shot him in cold blood during what was supposed to be a training exercise. Admiral Korvash was frantically calling for security guards on his communication device. "Arrest her immediately," he ordered. "She has committed multiple homicides. Justice has been served," Sura continued, ignoring the chaos around her. "The killers are dead. All of them." Security guards began pouring into the assembly hall from multiple entrances. They were armed with stun weapons and energy restraints. Dozens of them surrounded the central platform where Sura stood, but none of them moved to arrest her yet. They were too shocked by what they were seeing. Counselor Vexter found his voice first. "You have killed 5 academy cadets," he said, his blue skin turning pale. "This is an act of terrorism. This is an act of justice," Sura replied. "Something this academy seems incapable of providing." She placed Thokmar's head on the speaking podium where everyone could see it clearly. "Let me be very clear about what happened here," she said, looking around the room at all the alien faces. "Vrex cadets murdered a human because they believed we were too weak to matter. They laughed about it. They planned to kill me next." Her voice remained steady and emotionless. "They were wrong about humans being weak. Any species that believes we are defenseless is welcome to test that theory." The security guards began moving closer, their weapons raised. Sura made no move to resist or escape. She had accomplished what she came here to do. "You cannot simply murder academy cadets," Admiral Korvash said, his voice shaking with rage. "There are laws, procedures, civilized ways to handle disputes." Sura looked at him with cold eyes. "Your civilized procedures protected murderers and ignored victims. So I used uncivilized procedures instead. You will be executed for this," Counselor Vextar said. "The Galactic Council will demand your death." "Maybe," Sura agreed, "but the message has been sent. Everyone in this room now knows that humans protect their own, and the cost of harming us is higher than you imagined." The security guards reached the platform. Energy restraints snapped around Sura's wrists and ankles. She did not resist as they lifted her off the ground, but she continued speaking as they carried her away. "Minho wanted to serve in the Galactic Defense Force," she said. "He wanted to protect innocent people and uphold justice. You let his killers walk free because you thought humans did not matter." Her voice echoed off the walls of the assembly hall as the guards moved toward the exit. "Now you know better." The doors closed behind them, leaving the alien leadership alone with Thokmar's head and the knowledge that they had completely misunderstood humanity. In the silence that followed, Admiral Korvash looked around at his fellow commanders and council members. Their faces showed fear, confusion, and something else, respect. The small human female had just demonstrated that her species was far more dangerous than anyone had believed. She had killed 5 trained warriors with her bare hands and walked into a room full of the galaxy's most powerful leaders to deliver their heads. "Perhaps," Counselor Vexter said quietly, "we should reconsider our assessment of human capabilities." Admiral Korvash nodded slowly. "And our security procedures, and our investigation methods, and our treatment of human cadets," added Instructor KAV single quotes. They all stared at the bloody head on the podium. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.